And we are live. Sorry about that. Hi, everybody. Welcome to a branch of Laurels. I'm a Shaxi from Ontier. I'm a taxi from Ontier. That's what our closed captioning is saying. Sorry about that. And my guest tonight is my Maestrina Sarah from Artemisia. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Hey. So I usually ask people to start us off with their origin story, their SCA origin story.
Well, my mom and my dad moved to Artemisia in about 1995, and my mom was looking for something to do, and so she put her name on a list at a carnival, and they actually called her back to go to an event. So she did, and dragged along little 2-year-old me with her to the event, and what I'm told was a pillowcase with some holes cut out of it and some trim. So that was kind of my first experience in the SCA that I actually have no recollection of.
That's awesome. What is your first SCA memory?
My first SCA memory is actually the first Artemisian Crown tournament. I was super little. I think I was 3 or 4, maybe. But I have this weird, vivid memory of a lady in a pink dress. And I loved that pink dress. And so whenever I try and think back to my earliest SCA memory, it's that pink dress.
Do you know who that is now?
I have no idea. So, but it's in one of the pictures I shared. So if you are the lady in the pink dress, just know that I've been thinking about you for over 20 years now.
That's awesome. Well, I was there, but I don't think I was wearing a pink dress. So with me, but we'll look.
Yeah, maybe somebody will identify themselves.
That would be kind of awesome.
How great would that be?
So your mom was super into the SCA and you kind of came along for the ride.
Mm-hmm.
At what point did you start to get your own interests?
Oh boy. That really kind of grew gradually. One of the things that I think my mom did really, really well with getting me kind of invested in the SCA, she never really pushed it too much on me, was that she brought me along to everything, and everybody in our shire actually made a lot of effort with the kids, which was awesome. And so if it was like a calligraphy and illumination night, they would have a little printed off scroll for me to color for myself, or they'd be like, draw some circles, draw your own. And so I'd say that really helped me kind of get my footing in the SCA, and especially helped to develop my love for it, because I was introduced to a bunch of different art forms very early on in my age. And then I'd like to say around the time I was 7 or so, I started getting a love for costuming. And so I would not make the costumes myself. I certainly did not have those skills, but other people would make me clothes, and I would help, or I would help design them. I would decide the colors, or I would do some of the beading on it, and just to kind of dip my toes in a little bit. And so it was kind of a gradual process finding my love. I don't really have a specific moment where I was hooked. It was just kind of me as a little kid getting introduced to a bunch of stuff and realizing that the SCA was really a family to me and what I loved about it.
Having adults show interest in you and making you feel important and included.
Mm-hmm. That was a huge part of it.
Do you have memories of specific people that really stick in your mind as mentors of child Sarah?
Countess Treelock, who passed away a few years ago, was one of my mom's best friends, and I absolutely adored her. And she's the one who taught me embroidery, and she was the one I could go to her house and complain about my mom And she'd be like, right there with you, sister. She kind of ended up being an aunt to me. She really helped kindle a lot of my love for medieval art, and she wasn't necessarily a costumer, but she really helped me try other crafts. And then Master Niccolo was a huge influence to me when I was little. I was the only little kid that he would allow in his dance classes because I was in ballet, so I knew how to keep my mouth shut and just learn the moves and then do them. And through that, he taught me a lot about courtly graces, SCA etiquette, and a lot about persona play. I would say he was one of the biggest influences to me in terms of picking a persona, sticking with it, acting the part. You know, the little nuances that make it really come alive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Especially in an SCA context where we're not acting.
Right. It's a weird balance.
Yeah.
Like I have a persona award, but I never put on an air and have a persona. I'm always me. I just am me in weird clothes in a weird camping environment.
Yeah, but a lot of it also is, going along with the role playing of the SCA that we have. So it is definitely a delicate balance. And he was a huge influence on me as far as getting me off and running with persona play.
Awesome. So like bowing to the crown and that kind of thing?
Yeah, and, courtly etiquette when it comes to dancing. He taught me a lot about chess, backgammon, leisure activities.
Very cool.
Yeah.
SCA dancing is one of my big knowledge holes. So when I ask you for more information, it's because I have no idea.
I didn't pursue it for a very long time because I got really salty with ballet. And then I was like, I don't want to dance anymore. But I have a good solid foundation with a lot of the dances.
That's awesome. That's awesome. There's a reason that's one of those required peerage things, I guess. Oops.
We all have holes.
I'm just seeing if any of these are questions. So as you became a teenager, I'm sure that you must have, I don't know, did you go through a stage of rebelling against this whole SCA thing, or did you...
I was a real gem as a teenager. I'm a little bit of an outlier as far as second gens go, from what I've heard. I've talked to a lot of second generation Scadians, and a lot of them hide the SCA. I never did, but I definitely went through phases of hating it. I went through about a phase when I was like 4th or 5th grade where I just didn't want to go. But my dad traveled a lot, so my mom just had to bring me along, and so I had to put up with it. And then I went through a little bit of a phase in middle school where I really hated it. I just wanted to be a normal kid and go do, I don't know what middle schoolers do. Go to dances and not,
And did your parents have, and I don't want this to be an uncomfortable question, so if it is, just don't answer it, but did they have balance in interests? Like for example, my husband does scouting with the kids, like, and they've done sports if they want to, or whatever, gaming. Did you have that?
Yeah, so my dad actually doesn't play. The SCA was always kind of my mom and I's thing. My dad is super into fly fishing and boats, whiskey, things like that. He's a Montana man. And, but he always was really, really good about knowing that the SCA is important to my mom and I. And so he will show up to events occasionally if there's something important going on. Aww. That is important to my mom or I, and sometimes he'll show up if there's good fishing in the area. So if my dad's at an event and you catch the elusive Arwen's husband, then there's good fishing nearby.
Oh, we'll have to check that out. The sister between Rifkin and I is married to a fly fisherman, and that's a good thing to know.
Yeah. And my dad's hunted down some little SCA buddies that he likes to fish with too. So he'll show up in an event with his boat, and people will disappear for a day.
Well, it's good that he has his people in that totally.
Yeah. But we always had that balance in my family. If I did not want to talk about SCA or go do something else, I always could go to my dad, and because he was like, I'm cool with not talking about SCA for a bit.
I'll be your safe place.
Yeah.
Because there are some second gen kids I've talked to who have a pretty deep resentment towards the SCA because there was no balance in their house growing up.
Yeah, and
that's great.
And I did dance growing up, ballet, jazz, all of that. So I had that modern activity to do. My dad was an SCA, so the SCA was a huge part of my life, and that was definitely my mom and I's thing. But yeah, I was really lucky that I had that balance
to fall back on.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, what did the SCA look like when you started to separate from your mom a little bit within the SCA? How that happened?
Yeah, that one. So a huge part of my personal journey towards becoming a Laurel was setting myself apart from, this is Her Excellency Esther's daughter who's doing some cool stuff, to this is Sarah who's doing some cool stuff. I think there's a tendency with kids who were born in the SCA who start to mature and move into adulthood. There's a weird state of limbo that a lot of us end up in, that we almost reset because we get lumped in with the other college students who join the SCA, but we're still a little kid in a lot of eyes. So you still have all those relationships formed, and you've established yourself as a Scadian,
right?
But you almost reset and have to start over. And so
you have these deep roots and this really wide base of foundation.
Yeah. And another part of my journey, and it was a little bit difficult to get through, was sometimes I would hear, things get out that I was being held back from a certain award because I spent too much time with my mommy. And, by that time I had, moved out of my house, moved out of my parents' house. And it was, one of the few times I would get to see my parents or my mom. And it was my mom and I's thing. And so yeah, of course I'm going to hang out with my mom. And so that was kind of a weird path to tread, where it was, mostly my path in that respect was just not distancing myself from my mom, but establishing myself as my own person with a different art form.
Right. And having your own social circles.
Yeah.
Which is hard, especially when you have sort of a prominent SCA parent line.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the ask a lot of second gens who, have parents who are high achieving, and that's a huge hurdle.
Did you ever feel daunted by your mom's achievements and I'm not sure why I'm even bothering to do this because I'm never going to be as good as or good enough?
No, because my mom and I do completely different things. My mom is a Laurel for her Ottoman Turkish studies and for Middle Eastern dance. And I do 16th century German costuming. So, it was funny because, a lot, kind of going back to what we were just talking about, I would go to events and people were like, why are you not dancing with your mom? And I'm like, I don't do that. I know a lot about it.
Right. Did you make the choice to get into German stuff because it was not what she was doing, or what made you fall in love with doing what you're doing now?
The Swedes made me fall in love with it.
Ah.
I met them for the first time at a Penzic, and it was one of those beautiful dream moments because there was nothing mundane around. And I saw them all kind of grouped together doing their Lawns Connect, and I was like, that's me now. That's what I'm going to do. That's my
It's pretty impactful to see them all just hanging out and doing their thing.
Their goals. And before that, I was doing Venetian costuming, it was fun. I loved it. It's beautiful. It still holds a very special place in my heart, especially as, the persona that I really started diving into my costuming Laurel path. But that was almost actually a connection to my mom because we had a connected persona story.
Mm.
And I wouldn't say I stopped doing Venetian because of that or anything. I just found a different passion. But I think stepping away from even having that persona LinkedIn story with my mom, because we thought it was fun,
Of course.
But I guess it just ended up being important for me to establish myself as a separate entity.
Yeah. And I'm asking a lot of these questions because I have 2 kids that
I know exactly what you're doing. But I think there are a lot of parents out there too who are, they have kids and
and if we don't foster their participation and foster the participation of other teens and college people coming in, I mean, the spiel, we're all getting older. And that's a problem. We need to make sure that we have the young blood.
And the trick is to not over inundate them. You don't want to make them resent the SCA, but you want to make sure they know they have a place.
Yeah, and that it's a place that they forge with their own interests and not some cookie cutter mold that you fit them into.
Yeah, or that you have to follow your parents' path.
Yeah.
It's a delicate balance to be struck, and I don't have all the answers to it, but I can speak to my own experiences.
Well, and that's what's important, because the more stories you hear about the different paths that are takeable, that are followable. I mean, we've got this son who's a giant of a man already at 17, and he has no interest in fighting. And I think part of that is because he thinks his dad is like the fighter guy, and he doesn't want to have to try to compete with that and go through a learning process where he's not as good. So I don't know.
Well, there's always a chance maybe he'll find a love for it later.
Right.
Yeah, that's the thing, is if he wants to do it, he'll do it eventually.
So we don't push, we just keep the doors open.
Yep.
Maybe someday he'll walk through.
That's really all you can do.
Yeah.
Leave options open. Let the door be there and let them walk through it.
So Bug wants to know, do you have any advice for parents of second gen kids or leaders in kids activities that could help keep kids or teens keyed in and feel included?
I've been making an effort the past few events that I've been to go and watch youth combat. I like to have a little chair and I'll sit. Sometimes I'll talk to the kids, but I think it's really important for kids to see that, there's an adult there who's watching, who wants to see them succeed, and that, it's not just their parents dragging them along, leaving them at this little tournament.
Right. Everybody wants to be seen, so show them that they're a focus and they're a center and an important part of the SCA too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I've been trying to make an effort to go watch youth combat. I actually write a lot of award recommendations for children for our Artemisian Youth Award, the Griffin's Pride. And I personally just take an interest in the kids. I like to talk to them. I like to ask them what they did at the event. Some of them will just be like, I went and slayed a dragon. I'm like, good job. You're keeping the kingdom safe.
Thank you for protecting us.
I was a unicorn for the day. All right. That's a start. But I don't like, I have a very love-hate relationship with youth combat. I love that it's something that kids can do. It's something they can get invested in. It's something for them to work towards. But I don't like that it's sometimes the only thing that they can do.
Right.
Yeah. Because I grew up in a lawless time where we would just hit each other with phone swords all day long in the woods. We would get checked on maybe once or twice, and I had the best time.
Right. And it's different now. I mean, I can't speak for all the kingdoms, but in Ontario, it's kingdom law. Kids have to stay with their parents until they're 12.
Yeah.
They have to be there, which is important because that keeps kids safe, right?
Yeah. I mean, rules, are established for a reason. I just loosen up a little bit.
Yeah.
Youth combat's cute and it's fun and kids like it. I will never contest that, but sometimes they just want to wail on each other.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And you can do that in your own camp with other kids that are also kind of parentally supervised and go at it.
Mm-hmm. I just don't think everything has to be a learning opportunity. I think learning opportunities are good.
Mm-hmm.
I think something that the SCA does really well is instill a sense of service with kids. But I always worry how far is too far with the service and whether they're going to want to come back.
Right. Especially if they feel like the only way that they're a valuable part of the community is if they're actively performing a service.
Yep. I mean, how many kids do we see in their middle school and teen years just setting up tents, an entire event? They're not going to want to come back.
No, there has to be fun too.
Yep.
I was not a child when I joined, but I had to work through feeling like the only time I was valuable was if I was doing some sort of service.
Yeah, and I've never heard it explained like that, but that is absolutely 100% the way that I would say that goes down.
Yeah, and it's important that there's fun too, and it's hard to create a fun activity that's going to work for all kids of all ages. I mean, like, it's kind of impossible, and so it really kind of boils down to what the parents are able to create for their kids and what kind of communities the parents can form with other parents to get kids together. It's a whole thing.
Well, and kids will also tell you what they want to do.
Yeah.
Kids will figure it out. Lump them all together and they'll...
And that might be playing Dungeons and Dragons in the tent all day.
If that's, what it takes for them to have fun at an event.
That's okay. Right. That's just fine.
Or Magic the Gathering.
There you go. That too. Even chess sometimes.
Yeah. And it's a nice courtly activity.
So, you started getting into the German stuff after seeing the Swedes. About how old were you when that happened?
I want to say like 21, 22, but I didn't really pursue it right away. It was an image in my mind, and then I actually had to do the thing.
Right.
So I had my inspiration a little bit earlier before I actually dove into it.
And what did that diving into it look like for you? How did that take place?
I had been talking about it with my mom, and for a few years, because she was like, you should do German. Like, clearly you want to do this. And I was like, okay. Like, I've got some things to do with Venetian, but I guess I'll make a German outfit next. And so I made my first German. It's not perfect, but I like it. It's serviceable. It's fun. And wore it to an event to surprise her. And then I was hooked. I was like, I'm not wearing anything else. There are no corsets involved in this.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Game changer.
Oh, I hate corsets.
But it just kind of took a little bit of courage to just try something else. because I felt like I had barely scratched the surface with my Venetian clothing, but I was like, nope, I need to go where my heart is telling me to go.
And were your sewing skills self-taught mostly, or?
Most of my sewing skills came from my mom. She would help sew ballet costumes for the dance company I went to. And she, of course, helped me with a lot of my kids' garb, which I helped with. And so I learned a lot about patterning and basic sewing skills as I grew up. And then when I hit college, I learned how to truly do good Venetian clothing from Mistress Serafina Basso, who was living in Salt Lake. And I would go over to her house and be like, teach me how to make this. And so I learned a lot of like more historical sewing techniques. And I lost my train of thought there for a second, but
so you went to Serafina's house and learned the Venetian and more historical sewing techniques.
Yeah, some more historical sewing techniques, and just kind of cleaned up what I was doing a little bit.
Those finesse bits.
The finesse and the little technicalities that I didn't know about.
Finishing is important.
Yes. And I grew up in Montana, and there's some, but there's not a lot of historical costuming going on up there, and especially not 16th century. It's just not popular there. And so a lot of my sewing skills are fairly self-taught. I got a lot of the basics in historical sewing from my mom and Serafina, and then I started getting a little bit more into it, but I didn't have many people in the area who could really walk me through the finer points of stuff. So sometimes I do weird things that other people are like, why do you do it that way? And I'm like, well, it works. But I maintain that that's what would have happened in period too.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's my documentation.
Yeah. I totally believe that. I think that there were absolutely regional variances, and different families did things differently.
Yeah.
And
if it works, it works.
Yeah, totally. I think that's totally a thing. Agreed.
I'm glad you agree with me, because some people are like, what is going on here?
I think, how can you not think that?
Yeah.
Right? Because
it's like, I get all these like really sweet people who are like, let me show you this thing I made. Let me tell you about the historical stitch. And I'm like, string is string, honey. If it sews together and it's solid, we're good.
Yeah. And it's different if you're recreating a particular extant piece.
Yeah.
You want to follow all of those steps and all of those stitches. That's one thing. But if you're just taking the period aesthetic and incorporating it and synthesizing it into your own pieces, that's something different.
Don't get me wrong, I'm impressed by people who know exactly which historical stitch to use. I think, I'm into that.
Yeah. So did you eventually apprentice to somebody?
I did. So that was kind of the next step in establishing myself as somebody different from my mom. I apprenticed to Braden von Sabernheim, who I've known since I was a kid. And I also turned to him a lot for advice on peerages, and he was a good friend of my mom's. And so we had that discussion, and I was like, I need to do something. I got to establish myself as a different person, instead of just Esther's daughter. And he took me on with the intent of helping me establish myself as my own person. And I owe him a lot for that. It really helped. He was able to sit in a circle and I presume be like, this is Sarah. She's not her mom.
Right. And you guys had that discussion outright.
Yeah. That was a huge part of our main, I want to apprentice to you. I approached him and said, I want to apprentice to you. And, it was something that we both saw that needed to happen. So we met in the middle and made that our goal and our plan. And I got a lot of other advice from him too. He got me here. But a lot of it was establishing me as my own entity.
Yeah. And I think it's so important to, when you decide to apprentice to somebody, to have that clear communication and make sure that your visions match and make sure that you guys are working on the same path together.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we talked so much. Yeah, we have a great relationship, and I still turn to him for advice, and it's been great.
That's awesome. How long were you apprenticed to him?
2 years? 3 years? 2?
Not very long.
Not super long. We had more of an informal student Laurel relationship for a while, as we were kind of discussing taking the apprenticeship route. But yeah, not apprenticed super long.
Yeah, he says, yep, 2 years.
Okay, I was on the right track. I thought it was 2, and then I started second guessing myself.
Was it 2? I can't remember. Well, do you want to look at some pictures and sort of illustrate some of what we've talked about?
Sure.
Let me see if I can pull it up now that we worked hard to get our slideshow together.
Normally, I feel like a lot of the other ones could just pop up, but this one I was like, there's a story.
Yeah, it's important to, well, and there's such an age progression that's kind of important.
Yeah. So that is actually the pink dress. So if you were the owner of the pink dress, please let me know.
It looks like somebody in a squire's belt too.
Yeah. I vividly remember that pink dress. But that's me petting, I don't know who that dog is, but that is the first Artemisia Crown tournament. I was in the room as that outfit was being made. I actually do specifically remember that. It was just a little chemise with an elastic skirt on it, and I loved it. And we specifically made it in Artemisian colors.
Awesome. And there are 2 pink dresses behind you.
Yeah, the bright bubblegum pink lady with the long hair.
With the poofy shoulders.
With the shoulders.
Yes. Very cool. Do you know who this person is?
I believe, and I can never remember his SCA name. That is Joe.
Carrie says it's Rowena.
Is that Rowena? Okay.
That's what she says.
That's weirdly a load off my chest to know who that is. Years. This is just further proof that I was a little kid in the SCA. That's me. I picked that parasol out myself at the first Australia War I went to in 1999. I went to Australia with the intention of buying a parasol. I really wanted one, and I got it.
Cute.
It's like these are the things that little kids care about at events. Yeah, they want a parasol or something. This, and if my mom's watching, know that I love her, was probably the most mortifying day of my life when I had to do a school demo in front of my class.
Oh.
And that was in that 4th, 5th grade range where I was really resenting the SCA. So it was extra hate that day. And I also really hated that hat. I hated it so much. Objectively, I look at it now and think, that was a cute little hat.
Yeah, you're cute.
That day.
I was happy with each other at all.
So mad.
Funny.
This is an example of one of the dresses that I helped work on. I helped design it. I wanted it red and black. And you can't really tell very well in this picture, but on the little bodice are little clumps of beads that I did myself. And so that was a really good way that my mom let me incorporate, some of my own handiwork into my outfits.
Very cool.
And I think that was 1999. I think I was about 7 there. This is when I received my children's award, the Artemisian Griffin's Pride, in 1999 from Their Majesties Basil and Renee. I have very vivid memories of this, and I think yearly I let Basil know how much I love him and how much that award means to me. Still to this day, this is my favorite SCA experience, my favorite award that I've ever received. I think this is really what helped keep me in the SCA, was knowing that I had learned things, I was being seen, and that somebody noticed and bothered to do something nice for me. And you know, I just think that recognition is so important for kids.
So I have a funny story. Sam, about the same age as you are in this picture, some close friends of ours were on the throne, and they called him up to give him the, I think it's called the Lion's Pride. It's the same like it's a kids recognition award, and he wouldn't go up. He like had a panic attack and, and ran out of the building.
I mean, his defense, I didn't even realize that it was me they called up. I just kind of sat there, and suddenly everybody was like, Sarah, what are you doing? Go up there. And I was like, what? That can't be me.
Yeah, when everyone said, Sam, go up there, he went, nope, I'm out. And he left.
So cute.
It doesn't always work on every kid. But I'm glad it was good for you. That's awesome. Oh.
This is my teenage years, and I incorporated this picture because I want, if there are any teenagers out there watching this who are wearing their parents' garb right now, this is a stage that a lot of second-gen Scadians go through, where we're still growing, but we're a little too big for our kiddie garb, but nobody wants to make you new stuff that actually fits you because you're still growing. So I wore a lot of my mom's garb. This one actually wasn't my mom's. This is a Tudor dress that was made by Mistress Beatricia that my mom bought off of her. So it doesn't fit me. Didn't fit me very well. But this is my teenage years. We kind of altered it a little bit to fit me better. But we're not. Even if you're into costuming, those teenage years are weird.
Yeah, your body just changes so much.
Yeah, nobody wants to sew you garb. And so you just kind of end up wearing your parents' garb or an older sibling, or.
And my tact has been I make things 2 sizes too big because it's gonna fit eventually.
Yeah. That's kind of the pain of the SCA teenager, is like you just kind of have a few years where you're wearing weird stuff. You know, anything that people will give you or lend you,
and it's hard because that's such an important time for self-esteem and for really feeling cute, right?
Yeah, and I felt cute in this. Like, it didn't fit me super well, but it was blingy and velvet, and I was like, oh, I'm cool.
I'm pretty fly.
Yeah.
Well, I think it looks pretty good.
Thanks.
I didn't know that you fought rapier.
Yeah. Some people don't. I was actually really into it for a while. And I started doing rapier when I was about 14 for something to do. And that was something that also helped keep me in the SCA, was just turning a certain age and finding a community to join. And this is something else that my mom didn't do. I really enjoyed it for a while, and then I just, my interests changed, and I, ended up pursuing a little bit more of the arts and sciences path. But I still love rapier, and I will occasionally marshal for it still and watch a tournament. But it kept me in the SCA for a while. It kept me going. It gave me something to work towards as I was kind of figuring myself out, especially moving into college. And
And do you still do it? Are you interested in taking it up again?
I don't. I held on to my stuff for a couple years, and then I just never got the bug again. I ended up selling my stuff to people who would get more use out of it.
Yeah.
I just didn't want the stuff to sit in my closet. And actually, the huge part of why I didn't, when I realized I needed to move on, was that doublet shredded. I got hit with somebody's rapier had a little snag, and that doublet shredded, and I just didn't have the inclination or the drive to make something new. I was like, if I don't,
that's a big tip off.
yeah, if I don't feel passionate enough to make something new for this, why am I doing it?
Yeah.
But I had fun with it for a while. I learned a lot. I really enjoyed a lot of the rapier manuals. That kind of got me into a lot of research holes and taught me a lot about research and using primary sources, and I got a lot out of it.
That's awesome. That's important.
Yeah. This is my foray into Venetian. I had fun with it for a while. It didn't end up being my true passion, but I do still love it. I think I might still have that dress somewhere. I don't think I do. I may have sold it. But yeah, this is what I ended up doing as I entered college. There were a few ladies in southern Artemisia who just did beautiful Venetian and late period, and I wanted to be like them, and so I started doing it, learned from Mr. Serafina, and did that for a few years, and it really built up a lot of my sewing skills.
Awesome.
That is me and my mom. And as you can tell, we do completely different garb. But I love the pictures of me and my mom together.
Super cute.
Yeah, I don't really have a story behind this one. I just love it for what it is, because I think it really shows the close relationship my mom and I have, and why the SCA is important to us. So,
sorry.
No worries.
Here we go.
So this is me and one of my best friends, Jane. I can't talk about my sewing journey without mentioning Her Excellency Jane Fox. She moved to Atlantia a couple years ago, but we were roommates for a couple years in Montana, and she was also kind of starting to get her footing on historical costuming around the same time I was. So she also learned a little bit from Serafina Basso. We started into 16th century, and she was one of the few people up in the Montana area who was doing 16th century at the time. So we kind of started off on that path together and learned a lot together. And we had our little sewing room, and so some of the stuff, we have our different systems of doing things, but a lot of our work is very similar because we figured it out together. So there's absolutely no way I could talk about my sewing path and learning historical costuming without even mentioning her.
Awesome.
This is the day that Braden took me on as an apprentice. We had a cool little contract that was based off of a historical medieval apprenticeship contract, and we signed it, and that started that.
Why is there people in regular clothes with a suitcase behind you?
I know. If I knew Photoshop, I would cut them out of this picture, because I love this photo, but I hate them.
That's so weird. Like, what are they even doing there?
I don't know who they are. Maybe they're watching this right now, getting real mad at me.
Okay, well, we'll stop dissing them now.
I chose this photo just because I feel like it really summed up Brad and I's relationship. There's me stuffing my face, being goofy, and there's him looking very embarrassed by me. I just love this. There's This was a little photo shoot we did. There's a series of these, but for some reason, this really dumb looking one is my favorite out of these, just because I feel like it's closer to who we actually are.
And I see he had you got to wear a belt.
Yep.
Is that a common custom in Artemisia to do that?
Is it not other places?
It is and it isn't.
Oh.
Yeah, some people do it on tier and some people don't.
I feel like this is something I should have known. But yeah, in Artemisia, it's really, really common and customary to do a green belt for apprentices.
Awesome. And when you were elevated, did you keep the belt to use with your first apprentice, or do you give it back?
I believe the belt currently is with Her Excellency Malkin, his newest apprentice.
Awesome.
We passed it on. But I was gifted a belt that was identical to it with my actual arms on it to give to one of my future apprentices.
That's super cool.
Oh, it's so cute. I love it. It's in a special place. This was... We're all kind of leisurely strolling about at Artemisia 20 year. But Braden sent me on what was called Vonderyara, and he gifted me a little journal and sent me on my way to go learn from as many artisans as I could and use the journal and have them write in it. And it's a historical practice that's actually still done in Germany today, where the craftsmen go out and travel and learn from all the masters. And historically, there was a tradition where the journeymen would have their ear pierced with a nail, and you would put a gold earring in to pay for your funeral expenses, just in case. I think there's a little cause and effect there, but instead he gifted me a gold nose ring, which I still wear.
And he's telling me to ask about the ring. Is that what he's referring to?
Yep, the nose ring.
Okay.
That was a well thought out. I've not switched this one out since that day.
So that's the one he gave you.
Yep.
Your funeral's paid for.
My funeral is paid for.
It's always good to be prepared. Oh, and there you can see the nose ring in that picture.
The nose ring is there.
Yes.
It never leaves. I included this picture just because it's my favorite picture of me in garb, but I think it really embodies what I'm going for with my costuming.
It looks like clothing, not costume.
Exactly. Yeah, I want it to look like clothing, and I want to look like I just stepped out of one of the German woodcuts. And this picture was taken and posted, and I was like, this is it. I did the thing.
Goal.
I was like, I did not know this picture was taken at the time, but it really made me feel like I was on the right path and achieving my goals. This was before I was offered my laurel.
It's an important milestone for you.
Yeah, this one was an important milestone for me because my whole goal isn't flash, isn't how many technical fancy things can I put on one outfit. Right. Sometimes I think simplicity is really all you need. And I think I was washing dishes or something when this picture was taken, and I had my sleeves rolled up and I was working and sweaty and gross, but I was like,
you look real.
Yes.
Yeah, you look real. We're having a big discussion right now in our Laurel circle about everyday common item making versus doing that masterwork blingy thing.
Yes.
And that both are totally valid, and that we really need to lend a lot of credit to doing that everyday item. that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love flash and bling. I mean, that's where a lot of my Laurel path started. You know, I had love for Italian Ren when I was a little kid, you know, the Empire waist, the 1490s, and then, you know, moving into college, I switched into Venetian, which was super blingy, and I loved it, and I still do. But then I was like, I want to kind of hone down a little bit more. I think my goal is shifting a little bit. I think I want to look more like a real person
Yeah.
who stepped out of time.
Yeah.
What are the common folk doing?
Someone wants to know if your gown is made of wool.
That one is not. Artemisian summers are insanely hot, and so a good portion of my stuff is linen, which I know was bad. I do have a couple of wool dresses, which is good. I'm working on one Burgermeister class outfit right now, which is a really beautiful wool. For the most part, my stuff is linen just because summers are way too hot for wool. Just way too hot. This was the day of His Grace Conrad von Crixen's Pelican ceremony. And this is all the, I guess not all, but a good number of the ladies of our household, the company of St. Jude. I just love this photo.
I love that it's just him and all the ladies.
I know. Every time I see this photo, I laugh. And we just had such a good time that day. But I mean, I also can't talk about my journey without mentioning my absolutely wonderful household, St. Jude. I love them all so much, and they really took me under their wing, mentored the heck out of me when Brad took me on as an apprentice. We mentor each other. It's
a pretty special group of people. I don't know all of them, but what I have experienced has made me feel at home in the SCA again.
Yeah. Yeah, I really love it. And a lot of our goals are common. And, you know, if you're an apprentice to one St. Jude Laurel, you're apprentice to every St. Jude Laurel. And that's what I love about it, is it's not just hands off this person's apprentice. They're going to tell you when you're wrong.
They are going to be your village and raise you up.
Yep, absolutely. This was the night of my laureling. I just love this photo. I had a beautiful setting.
It was really cool lighting in there.
It was gorgeous. And you can see just under the sword is my mom sitting there. She's also a laurel. And so it was
very cool.
I just words can't really express how much delight I get out of both my mom and I being part of the same circle and having achieved being Laurels. It's very emotional. It's just like a cute little mother-daughter thing.
Well, she's a countess as well, right?
Yes, she reigned with Duke Ibrahim a few years ago.
Well, so there's still some achievement to go there.
Yeah.
No pressure.
I still have goals, but you know, no rush. And this is the day that Ibrahim won for my mom.
Aw.
Yeah. Again, just one of those really beautiful SCA moments that I got to share with my mom. And this is the dress I'm wearing right now, but I haven't gotten to debut it at an event yet, so I just wanted to show the world.
Yay!
The collar was actually made by Mistress Juliana, though.
It's hand woven.
It's hand woven, and it's real fur, and it's gorgeous, and I love everything about it. I'm obviously wearing it now. It goes great with this outfit, and I'm very sad I did not get to debut it. I made it for Gulf Wars.
Aww. that's that. So we'll stop. There we go. We're back. Well, thank you for that. That was super cool.
I wanted to share a little bit more about, my path from being really tiny to now.
What's a big path? I mean, that's a long time, and it's a lot of different stages in life.
Yeah.
And you still have a long way to go.
I do. There's no end.
What are some of your future goals? What are some of your projects that you want to do?
Well, if you want a really good laugh, when I was younger, I set a goal for myself. I don't remember how young I was. I was pretty young. I was probably like 10 or so. And I told myself I was going to be a double peer by the time I was 23. So y'all can get a really good laugh at that. I think I would eventually like to be offered a pelican. That's not something that I'm worried about yet. Maybe eventually I'll get there. I would like to win crown at some point. Well, I wouldn't fight, but maybe someday.
You would like to inspire.
Yes. I want to move a little bit more into the blingy German instead of just what I call trash German, which is my linen stuff, which I know linen's bad.
I don't think linen's necessarily bad. I think it's functional, right?
Yeah, I mean, as long as you have like a reason behind it, I'm okay. If somebody says I know what this is supposed to be, then I'm okay. I want to branch out a little bit more into different types of art. My boyfriend Sir Gabe is getting more into metalwork, and so it's been kind of fun peering over his shoulder and seeing what he's doing. Sometimes collaborating on a couple projects. I've been enjoying that. The other day I actually did some leather working for the first time.
Oh wow!
It was for a mundane project, but it'll translate over.
Yeah, that'll be fun. That'll be fun. Gabe's a good teacher too.
Well, when he's not your boyfriend, sometimes.
Yeah. I said that, and I was like, oh, but I know my husband's a good teacher, but he cannot teach me. Part of that's me, and part of that's him. So I totally get that.
Yeah.
So is the dress you're wearing now, has that kind of been your, oh no, you finished that before COVID.
Yeah, I made it for Gulf Wars and finished it about the week before and was so excited about it because it's obnoxious and yellow. And then I didn't get a chance to wear it. And I was really bummed.
Do you have stuff that you've been working on since we've been in our cages?
Yeah, I've been kind of slowly working my way through a portrait copy, which is really, really rare for me. I like to kind of pick and choose elements from historical sources and then put them together. But I'm working on a Burgermeister class German right now, and it's a beautiful olive green wool. It's gonna have some embroidery, and I'm just kind of slowly working my way through it. I'm not pushing myself to make anything new during quarantine, but when the mood takes me, I actually think this is my masterpiece outfit so far.
That's exciting.
It's kind of nice to not have a deadline or push myself to have something new for an event. I just kind of leisurely work on it when the mood takes me.
And I think it's important during these times to recognize that there are times when you don't feel like doing anything that involves getting out of bed.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Absolutely.
Laura wants to know is, I don't have my glasses on, so bear with me. What is something that you've seen a crown do that really inspired you or the arts community? What advice would you give a crown to avoid alienating artists?
Ooh. Gonna have to think about that one for a second. I can't say that I've ever really encountered anything that's been alienating. Something that I personally, like with crowns, I love seeing really good garb up there. I like seeing the really majestic garb that'll go with the kingdom crowns. Um, that's just something that I personally love to see. Yeah, in my experience, I've actually been, Artemisia is very lucky. We haven't really had many. We haven't really. I can't think of any alienating times that I don't know how to answer this.
Anything that was really inspiring?
I really, really enjoy persona play coronations. The last one that I saw that really springs to mind was His Grace Floki and Her Grace Guinevere, and they did it was not their last reign, but the one before, where they did a period Norse one and they tied it in with Norse mythology. And it was so cool. It was theatrical and fun, and I love the persona play that goes into it. So I love coronations that involve personas and some kind of historical element.
Awesome. How do you incorporate persona into your everyday SCA play? Is it something you can put a finger on or no?
My overall aura, I think, changes when I'm at events. Mundanely, I am a super goofy, socially awkward person. And when I'm at events, I'm a little bit more demure at events, weirdly. I kind of put myself in the mind of, a woman of the time, maybe not necessarily 100% that way, but, I try and temper myself a little bit at events, and, I remember my PLQs a little bit better.
It's like you're on your best behavior.
Yeah, I'm on my best behavior. I don't know if that's really like that great of an answer, because I think the same could be said for a lot of people.
Okay, well, I don't want you to.
Well, I do actually just came up with an answer.
Okay, cool.
Something that I want to go back into this pandemic doing, or not into the pandemic, out of this pandemic when events come back, is I want to incorporate a lot more of the SCA role play. I personally need to be better about using SCA names and titles and, remember my courtly etiquette, because I think sometimes it's very easy if you've been around for a long time to just get really casual. And so when things start going again, I want to incorporate and have way more fun with the SCA role play. Maybe incorporate a little bit even more persona play. I was thinking about maybe introducing some German language to people. Things like that. I want to start having more like fun with the role play a little bit more.
I think
I got embarrassed by it when I was a teenager and then never quite bounced back.
Well, it's a little awkward. I mean, as a newcomer in the SCA, I remember being told that gold chains and white belts were reserved for knights, and I like laugh cried because I was like, oh, the whole disco scene is safe for them. I just thought it was really, really funny. And I don't feel that way anymore.
It's so, again, there's that balance. I mean, we're not speaking forsoothly, we're not acting, but we're also playing a part. I don't know how to describe it. But I want to explore it more. That's what I'm gonna do.
I think it's going to be really difficult to. Well, obviously, it's going to be really difficult to come back because we've been gone. We will have been gone for a year and probably longer than that. And we're all getting really used to using each other's Facebook names.
I live in fear of using people's gaming names. I've had that thought. I was like, oh no, what if I use somebody's game name?
They'll probably answer to it.
Probably.
Because I think we're all a little broken that way.
It'll definitely be a little bit of a transition back, but I've got some goals and things I want to be a little bit better about.
Yeah, I'm actually with you on that goal. I have had a really hard time the last few years keeping everyone's names separate, and people that I spend time with mundanely, I get in an STA setting and I completely don't call them by their STA names. And they're constantly like, it's blah, 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 like reminding me. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry.
Or you see their name on Facebook so often that you just completely blank on what their SCA name is.
Yeah. So have patience with each other when we go back.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a trial for all of us.
Remind everyone what you want to be called.
Now's the time to make your name change.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Question from Bree. Have you started on the HRE boy clothes yet?
No. I need to.
Can you explain what that is?
I believe that she's referring to the Lawns Connect men's clothing. Okay, that's all. I have started the booty shorts. I don't know where to go with them now. I kind of hit a point where I was like, what do I do with these now? And I was going to have them for Gulf Wars, and then that didn't happen. And so I kind of just chucked it on the shelf until I decide to return to it. But beyond that, I have not done anything else with it.
Are they done? Can you wear them?
No. I can pull them up. They look like shorts, but there are no fastenings. And they do not have the cod piece yet, so.
He says the Ritter class booty shorts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, that's fun. I am not of a body type to rock the booty shorts, but I have much appreciation for other people who do that.
It's just dorky and fun. I thought it would be kind of fun to run around Gulf Wars with them.
Super
It'll
fun.
be fun to run around to other events with them when it's really hot out. But yeah, I just kind of hit a point where I didn't want to put too much more thought into them. I'll return to them. I don't make a lot of pants.
She's gonna check back in on you.
I'm sure she will.
She's like that. She always checks in on my project. So how is that project going? And I'm like, oh, I haven't touched it.
Oh, at least I'm not alone in that.
Yeah. But I always go back and touch it again after she says something. So
yeah, this is a good reminder. This is maybe the push I needed. Publicly called out for not finishing my shorts.
Not to put you on the spot in your interview. Bug wants to do novelty cod pieces that you can swap out or store snacks in.
Yeah. Bug is also part of the Lawns Connect Booty Short project. And I don't know where she's at in this process, but I feel like she's probably about where I'm at.
and I have to apologize for not using her SCA name because I don't think I even know it.
It's Belka.
It's what?
Belka.
Belka. All right, now I know. Okay, so well, now everybody's all excited about booty shorts, so I guess it's gonna happen, maybe. I don't know.
All right, I guess I have to finish these now. They're terrible. They're like gray wool on the outside, which is like a beautiful wool, and then on the inside is like one leg is bright electric blue and the other leg is bright lime green. They are not classy whatsoever, but they'll be fun.
I think that sounds like a big party on legs there. I think that's great. That's awesome. Well, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you wanted to cover tonight?
Yes.
Okay.
As far as, second, third, fourth generation Scadians go, and of multiple generations now in the SCA, I would like to encourage others to kind of consider that a little bit more when looking at somebody's SCA journey. Maybe somebody set a goal to be a knight when they were 7. Maybe they saw the king on the battlefield and said, that's who I want to be. I want to be a knight. And they got hyper focused on that. And maybe they seem really passionate and crazy about it. Sometimes it's really hard to separate, those childhood goals from that concept of you're not supposed to want it. Or they want it too bad. I think the journey of a second, third, fourth, I'm going to say second gen just for brevity. But sometimes we do weird things. And a lot of that just comes from the fact that we were raised in the SCA. Or our journeys are different.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
That needs to be respected.
Yeah, and a lot of us have a lot of similar experiences. Not all of us have the exact same experiences, but I think when you're really looking at somebody and judging them as far as like a peerage goes, it's important to take into account that experience. I think if I had to start over at 18, a lot of my childhood beading or embroidery and those little projects that I did would be forgotten. And that was a huge part of my path and journey.
And we don't, well, I can't speak for all Laurel councils, but we don't really monitor kids.
Yeah. And, I think that's, kind of a tall order to, keep an eye on all the kids as potential peers. I'm definitely not saying that, but I think, as they start growing and, maturing and starting to do their thing, they're just, just take into account that they have a different journey. It's not going to be the same as the other 21-year-olds who joined in college.
Right.
Or the same as, another Scadian who is maybe a little older and just joining this path. It's, everybody has a different story. And I think second gen ends up in a little bit of a state of limbo sometimes. There's
and
that.
They have all these people watch them go through all the rocky developments that you have in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be hard too. I've watched people go up to Dukes and be like, I changed your diapers. And it's like,
I hate that. For everybody watching, don't tell people that.
And I mean, it's true.
Yeah.
That's awkward.
Yeah, it's especially when you don't remember who the person is. I got people who come up to me like, hey, do you remember me? I didn't see you since the 90s, but I'm your auntie so-and-so. And I'm like, I'm sorry. No.
Well, and I think Facebook plays a role in that too. Like there are people that know my kids from Facebook and my kids have no idea who they are.
Yep.
So that's also an element.
Yeah. But I mean, kids see, they learn, they absorb the information. I know SCA culture probably better than mundane culture, frankly. I've seen a lot of Artemisia's history. Yeah. And I've seen a lot of the things that have happened in the SCA that may have caused a certain rule to be in effect. And, even though I was a kid or a teenager at the time, it still had a profound effect on me. And, I'm sure the same could be said for a lot of us who grew up in the SCA as children. We can't discount their experiences.
Right. I mean, and you see your parents process stuff at home and talk about and work through stuff at home, and you learn from that.
Yeah. I learned so much from my mom's path too. and a lot of the people around me. And yeah, I just think that sometimes there's a habit of lumping the second gen who are, early 20s or so in with the other 20-year-olds, or there's a tendency to forget that they're an adult now. And
right.
so then you just kind of end up on this weird, I don't even have a metaphor for it.
Right.
It is like a weird state of limbo.
Yeah.
And maybe they do hang out with their parent a lot, or they do a lot of the same stuff as their parent. Maybe they don't want to do something different from their parent like I did.
That should be okay too.
That's okay too.
Yeah.
It's really just a matter of setting your mind to looking at them as individuals.
Yeah. I think it's really important. Bree says not only an adult, but an adult with a body of work. It's a hard road to walk.
Yeah, and a good portion of my body of work doesn't exist anymore. It didn't fit. It may have been passed down to another kid in the kingdom. So I don't have a lot of these tangible things to be like, no, I did this. I may not have documented it when I was 7, but I did it.
Yeah. Yeah. So second gen kids now who maybe do have social media, document your stuff.
Yeah.
Make a, and this is advice I give to all, anyone that I work with as in the role of a teacher, is make a public album in your Facebook, and everything that you make, or take a picture of you doing a service and start keeping track of it.
Yeah.
It's good for you to track your own journey. It's good for when you're starting to be looked at, for people to be able to really easily access. In our council, we actually have, when we go through our list, we have a picture of the people, and then we have a link to their Facebook public album.
Oh, cool.
That we can click on it and we can go through the pictures while we're talking about them.
Yeah. Also, some advice out there. If you're crazy like I was, double dip on school projects when you can. I wrote a lot of school essays that ended up being used for SCA. And I also made garb for a school project one time.
I've seen people do that in college as well.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. For sure. Well, good. I think that was a soapbox.
It was definitely a soapbox.
Do you have any other advice for up and coming people?
Yeah. Maybe not necessarily tailored towards second gen. But the biggest piece of advice that I like to give to people now who are just starting in the SCA is to not limit yourself to one community or one bubble. Allow yourself to explore. I think it's a little bit of a common tendency these days for people to get really entrenched in their passion, whether it's armored combat or rapier or arts and sciences or, this one thing.
Right.
But I think a huge part of the magic of the SCA is being able to dip into other areas. You can still do A&S and create a beautiful tournament gallery to watch armored combat with. Or maybe you just don't feel like fighting that day and you have a beautiful display you want to put up. You don't have to be tied down to one thing. And I don't think we should be demonizing people who decide they want to skip a tournament for a day or decided they didn't want to enter this arts competition. I think it's okay to allow people to dabble or decide what they want to do that day.
Being multifaceted is a good thing.
Yes. I think, when new people come into the SCA, and I'm guilty of it too. You want to dig your claws into them and be like, let me show you this thing. And if you veer from this thing, you're going to feel like you're losing a friend. And I don't want to do that to people. No. And I hope I haven't done that, but we have a tendency sometimes to get a little intense about the things that we love. And we want new people to experience that passion that we have for the thing. And then I think maybe that can be off-putting.
Yeah, one of the things that I try to do with new people, or even people that have been in the SCA for a while but are new to the area, is say to them, I'm here for you, you can hang out with me, but I totally encourage you to find your niche. There's so many different places and different groups to hang out with, and we may not be your cup of tea, and that's totally okay.
Maybe I'm just your intro to the SCA, but if you find your niche, you find your people, then
do it.
Go.
Yeah.
Find your passion.
Yeah. Go with my love and my blessing.
Yep. And if your passion is in 10 different things in the SCA, do it.
And nobody will do it for you, and there's no, I think one of the biggest things I've got from interviewing a lot of the old timers of the SCA over the past lots of months, I don't even know how long it's been anymore. It's been a long time.
Time has no meaning anymore.
I don't even know. Is that they just did stuff. There wasn't a framework or rules. They just made stuff happen. And if you want to see something in the SCA, make it happen.
Yeah. And I think at the moment our culture is very much like we have these little bubbles. Like you can do rapier, you can do armored combat, you can do ANS, you can do these different things. But I want to see a bit of more of a dome than separate bubbles.
Yeah. Somebody's telling me 45 years. I was talking about how long we've been doing interviews, not how long the SCA. If we've been in quarantine for 45 years.
45 years, it feels like it. We've all come out of this significantly aged.
Well, I think that's going to be the case either way.
Or we're all going to come out of this like 12-year-olds because we don't remember how to interact with adults.
Probably accurate. Awesome. Well, this has been super fun. Is there anything else that you want to talk about?
I think I kind of got what I wanted to say out for the most part.
Does anybody have any other questions? See if anybody types up. Somebody says it feels like it's been 45 years. It does. It does. All right. All right. Well, thank you so much for trusting me with your story and for braving being immortalized on the interwebs.
Braving is maybe a very accurate word for it.
It's a weird thing, and I really appreciate you helping me do this.
Well, thank you for allowing me to be a part of it. I love everything that you've come out with. I've been watching a lot of the interviews, and you and your sister are really helping to keep the dream alive right now.
I hope so. We'll see. So speaking of my sister, tomorrow night we are interviewing Count Oak from Tyree here in Ontier. He's reigned as Prince of Tyree, and he is one of those gentleman who has played a very, very long time in Ontier. He's a Lion of Ontier, Pelican, and a Knight. So that'll be really interesting. He has a lot of great stories. Yeah, thanks everybody for watching. And Sarah, thank you again.
Thank you.
And we'll talk to you soon. Good night, and thanks for watching.